Good evening. I'm Jason Muker, and welcome to HC Highlanders Live. Another episode, the first of 2021. We're going to put 2020 behind us, hopefully, and all its craziness, and hopefully it's a new year in more ways than one. I'm joined by, as always, Matthew Webb, our director of athletics. And as this transition between semesters, it's a bit longer than usual, quite a bit longer. Students haven't been on campus since Thanksgiving break, and we're about 2.5 weeks away now from the start of the second semester. The campus has kind of picked up a little bit with staff and faculty a little bit, getting ready for the second semester. And here in athletics, we're planning and doing a lot of things associated with all the compact schedules we're going to have once February and March roll around. And I think in our last episode, we talked a little bit about the announcement of the winter sports and the fall sports and how those have gotten scheduled for our conference only play beginning in March. And we're working on some non-conference things for some of our spring sports. And I'll let Matt talk a little bit about that. And he'll also introduce our special guest for this evening. Matt, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So we're back. Christmas has come and gone. New Year's has come and gone. And we're back at it. And many of us are back in the office, starting to get ready for the students returning in a couple of weeks, like Jason said. There's still lots of uncertainty with the virus. There's a lot of optimism, I think, with the vaccine now coming out. But moving into the spring, we still have all kinds of protocols and measures that we need to take in order to practice and play. And unlike the fall, testing is going to be a regular part of our procedure this spring for all of our athletes. Depending on what sport you play, it might be as many as it could be up to 3 times a week. Most of our athletes will be tested regularly once a week. And those are per NCAA recommendations in order to be as safe as we can. So we're anticipating a good spring. It's going to be a very, very busy spring. All of our seasons for all of our sports are going to be happening in March and April, and for a little bit into May for our spring sports. All of our fall sports that were canceled this past fall and our winter sports, which would include basketball and indoor track and field, are going to be playing in March, and into April some, but all truncated, shorter seasons than normal, mostly conference-only contests. And then our spring sports, baseball, softball, men's and women's lacrosse, men's tennis, will have a little bit more of a full schedule as much as we're able to, since they're the teams that lost their seasons entirely last year. So in any case, we're ramping up. We're getting ready for that and beginning to put all of our real detailed minutia, I'd say, plans in place with scheduling and so forth. So there's a lot that's going to go into that. But we're looking forward to it. We've gotten good rest here over break, and we're looking forward to getting going here in the spring. So it's my pleasure to introduce our guest this evening, Ryan Spear, a 2007 alum and a member of our cross country and track and field teams. I think did both. And Ryan is, you can clarify that if I got that wrong. And Ryan is currently our director of admission here at Houghton and has been here for 14 years, I think, in that capacity in the admission office. And so welcome, Ryan. It's good to have you here. And Ryan and I have worked together the last couple of years in my role as the AD. And it's been really a privilege to work with Ryan in his capacity as we've collaborated on recruiting efforts. Obviously, a lot of what we do in athletics is recruiting. And so the students that we bring to Houghton, the student athletes that we bring to Houghton are students also. And so, the numbers that we're held accountable to impact admission. And so it's something we've collaborated on and I think it's been a real, real good process. So welcome, Ryan. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the chance. And, although I do wish I could say I did both cross country and track and field. I was a cross country only. That's
Okay.
one of those things I don't want to say regret per se, but I was a double major while I was here. And part of my athletic journey, one of the things I appreciate about Houghton is I was a okay runner in high school. When I decided to come to Houghton, a couple of the guys on the team said, "Hey, you should join us." And I just never thought, well, they were not going to take someone like me. And they certainly were willing to give me a shot. And I was able to work out with the team, and the coach was willing to work with me, and so I was really privileged that Houghton's athletic culture does have a very, very high standard, but it was appreciative at the time that they were able to take someone with some talent and improve them to a better level. But that was a great part of my experience, really strong memories. Some of the friends I stay in touch with were my teammates. So every time I interact with a student athlete, a prospective student athlete, I just can smile knowing that they've got a great experience ahead of them from taking their ability to the next level, which is just, I think most athletes want to know, right? Like, what am I capable of? Like, what is really my upper limit of my playing ability? Whether that's that you already play at a high level and you want to be on a team with everybody else is also playing at a very, very high level. It's such a great experience to kind of be in that setting. So really recommend it from the, a competitive level all the way down to that group of people to share life with. I was in a wedding of one teammate's. A teammate was a part of my wedding, and you just grow together as people, and friendships develop. You grow spiritually. I sat with my team during chapels. That was who I sat with during chapel, and such a great part of my experience. And I love the fact that the coaches knew that we were here to be scholar athletes. That of course wanted to push us to the highest level athletically, but knew that they wanted to support us holistically, academically, in our faith as well. So thanks for the chance to share a little bit about the admission side of things and my own journey as it relates to that, Matt. It's been great to work together, and it is a true partnership with admission and athletics. We work really closely to connect all the dots and help make Houghton possible for students that it's a great fit for.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You speaking of sitting in chapel together, um, you ran for Bob Smalley, is that correct?
Yeah, Coach Smalley,
Right.
absolutely. He's actually, I learned from him. He would always have a notepad and be taking notes. And he never told our team, "Hey, you should bring a notepad. You should take notes for chapel." But after a while, I just thought, well, maybe I should bring a notepad to chapel and start taking notes. And I kept it with me the whole time. I'm a prolific. Take notes during sermons. Take notes during talks. Learn that from him.
Well, and that's a tradition that's carried on. I mean, the cross country team is known for sitting front and center in the chapel, and
Right.
I don't know if it's to quite the same degree as it was, but it was automatic. You go to chapel, and the cross country team is sitting in the front and center with Coach Smalley, and that's a good thing. Well, Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe your
Sure.
particular journey, how you ended up at Houghton, how you knew about Houghton, and sort of maybe how that's taken you from graduating as an alum and then coming back in the role that you came back into where you are today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. So I come from a multi-generational Houghton family, and that's not uncommon at Houghton. So whenever I talk with people considering the college, I totally admit, yeah, you're going to find some students here whose parents went to Houghton, whose older siblings went to Houghton, and that was my story. I'm a third generation Houghton alum on my dad's side of the family, and I'm a fourth generation Houghton alum on my mom's side of the family. So it goes back both directions. So I actually fought that. My sister was going here as I was considering colleges, and I did not want to come to Houghton. So I didn't. My first year, I went to a different Christian college. And I think part of it for me was I wanted to break out, and I felt for whatever reason that I needed to be like somewhere else to find out who I was. The strange thing is, I sort of did find out who I was, and who I was, I needed to be at Houghton. So I transferred in as a sophomore, and I always kind of reflect a little bit to think like, oh gosh, I really should I have come as a first year student? I missed out on some of those first year experiences, but I just know that I wouldn't have valued Houghton the way I do if I hadn't been somewhere else. And not that the other place was terrible, but you just realize that it was the best fit for me. So why was it the best fit? It just got this unique blend of high academic standards, of like really people who really care about each other. I just noticed really quickly, even in classroom settings, that professors really cared that their students were in class that day. They weren't just up there to lecture and get it over with. And of course, I love the natural setting of Houghton College as well. I mean, if you love the outdoors, 1,300 acres to explore. Of course, I'm biased as a cross country guy because nothing but space to roam and explore. So yeah, that's where Houghton took me, and I had some great mentors here, from Coach Smalley, as Matt mentioned, to Professor Rich Stegan, one of my psychology professors, who's now retired. Professor Paul Young, who is another professor of psychology here as well, and just really grew academically and spiritually. Ultimately, decided to double major in psych and philosophy. So I love that Houghton has this intellectual culture where you can really ask some interesting questions and get into some interesting dialogue. I feel like there's a niche for everybody, right? If you're the nerdy, let's debate something philosophical type, that's me. You'll find your people. But if you're more the like, hey, let's hang out and play play video games all night or whatever, you just find your. I like that Houghton has the ability to find your own group. So had my undergrad experience, really enjoyed running cross country here. Through some great coaching from Coach Smalley and Coach Matt Doherty, was able to achieve a big goal of mine, which was to be an academic All-American. At the time, they had a certain GPA threshold as well as the time you had to reach. And while my running time was certainly nothing to write home about in terms of the team is really competitive now, I think it's a testament to the coaching staff that they were able to work with each athlete, and really proud of the ability to reach that threshold. So graduated, had the opportunity to join the admission team. They were looking for admission counselors, and I thought, well, hey, I transferred to Houghton. I know what it's like to look at other options, know what other options are, and I think it'd be kind of great to help students think through their choices. So I had the privilege to work with not all of Matt's kids, but many of Matt's kids as they even pursued their journey and options, and that's been a privilege of mine. I actually really have a soft spot for students who have Houghton connections or our local students who are trying to determine, is Houghton really the best fit for me? Should I go further and explore? So it's been a privilege to work with a variety of students. Now find myself in a director role where I get to play more of a role supervising a team and equipping them to connect with students. And we came up with a team mission statement, and our mission is to inspire students and parents. We understand this is a family choice, especially if someone is a student athlete. Often parents are wanting to know, I want to come and watch games and matches, and is this college and this coach or this program really going to help my son or daughter not just excel athletically, but be cared for as a person? Because we know how much parents have cared for their sons and daughters as they've driven them to practices and tournaments and meets and you name it. So it's a privilege to work with a team that seeks to inspire students and parents to see the great things going on at Houghton, and how we can often be the best choice for someone. So there's a little bit of my story really influenced by a lot of the people. So that's probably the single thing I'd say that makes Houghton stand out. After you think about all the other things, you think about like food. We do have good food. As you think about all the other things that are important, it's the people, and I think Houghton has great people, great people, a very very deep bench to extend the athletic analogy in terms of the people who decide to work here and make this part of their life.
Yeah, one of our alums refers to the value of athletics as it's all about relationship.
Yep.
It's all about relationship. That's really what it's about. I'd be curious in hearing from you, Ryan. I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but from the admission perspective, when you're working with a student and they're considering coming to Houghton and they're contemplating, they've been offered an opportunity to play, whatever sport it is, and they're contemplating, should I come to Houghton? Should I play a sport? What sort of what's your tagline? What's the rhetoric you use in admission to speak to the value or the benefit of being a student athlete? Now, you experientially have that from your own experience, but not all of your staff do. And what's the admission office's sort of response to that in terms of how you guys sell us in athletics in terms of being a valuable part of their Houghton experience?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I use the personal story as well when I have the opportunity to talk with students myself and parents. But I go back to the phrase, we call them, we use a lot of terms and analogies in our work. So sometimes we might use the phrase PSA, which stands for prospective student athlete. And that's really important to understand that it's a student athlete model where we want to view you as a whole person. And we're absolutely going to help have a model here that propels athletically to the next level, but understands that you're here to have a lifelong preparation for whatever God has in store for you next. And some people, it's additional athletic participation and additional ways to either be a coach or to play professionally or to somehow be involved in an athletic avenue or career if it's through a specific major of theirs that relates to athletics. Even things like data science, you might not think, how does data science connect? Well, those who play baseball typically know, baseball, softball, like it's like they love the data. They swim in data. So we talk to student athletes about the benefits of the co-curricular and the curricular connection, where it's not just they understand that they're not just here to be an athlete, but being an athlete enriches being a student. Being a student enriches being an athlete. It's just all part of this great model. And I talk about we talk about the accountability piece, where often athletes are really hard workers in high school because they've got a lot of people counting on them to stay eligible to play, and not just to stay eligible, but to really excel in the classroom just as much as they do on the field or on the court or in other places. So we talk about benefits holistically, benefits from the kind of team culture and structure that encourages people to stay on top of things. I mean, I'm reminded every time I walk through the library that the baseball coach has a folder in there that says men's baseball, and you can tell there's an expectation to log in and check and make sure that you're just as committed in the classroom as you are out on the field, because these things aren't separate. They're related to each other. So we just talk about the value of having that built in, and of course you got the lifelong connections. One of my fondest memories of being a Houghton staff member was actually attending a couple years ago the athletic banquet, which is just an amazing chance to see all of it, all the years of experience and work and accomplishment and friendship and awards given to athletic alums from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You just see this rich legacy that's been left behind. And so I'm a really strong mission guy. So when someone asks me why should I be a student athlete, I wish I could just bottle up the athletic banquet. Like, here, take this pill. It'll tell you everything about why
Yeah.
it's so amazing to do, because it's just such a rich experience. And so if someone's not sure, either ability level wise or time commitment, but I want to be pre-med and I want to be an athlete in this or that area, I'm so pleased that Houghton is one of the best places to talk to a coach to discern that. And they'll give you good feedback. Of course, there's standards, right? Like most athletes know, if you want to play basketball, you need to have certain, ability level. If you want to play, if you run track and field certain times, play tennis, you need to have certain abilities, etc. But coaches are really great with working with each person, as well as helping people really fulfill their potential. So it's a great model. Houghton's one of very few schools that will really work with each person and support them as an individual, and not just a replaceable, like, oh, you're injured, too bad, I've got 5 other athletes waiting in the wings to fill your spot. Really wanting to make sure each person is able to perform at a high level and contribute. So yeah, it's a great culture.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think sort of the flip side from that, our faculty, my experience as a coach, longtime coach, and now athletic director, there's a lot of places you can go to school and say, well, I'm going to be a member of the men's soccer team or whatever. Well, you can't do pre-med also. Like, you can't do music also. If you want to be a music major, oh, you can't be an athlete. There's a lot of places that would say that, certain majors, well, you can't do athletics and be an X major. And our faculty have been so good at making it work for student athletes. And not that there's not some tensions sometimes. There are some conflicting commitment tensions, but we work it out and we make it doable for our student, and on both sides, we make it work. So that's something I'm really happy about in Houghton. And you spoke a little bit, Ryan, to the value of the experience, and the student athletes tend to be harder workers. We'd like to think tend to be more disciplined and learn to use time management a little bit better. And I think these are some things that athletes tend to learn maybe a little bit better than non-athletes. One of the things that I like to reference, our former athletic director, longtime boss of mine, Skip Lord, who's still here at Houghton, he used to refer to the athletic sort of venue as a life laboratory, that you learn things by being a member of a team in sport that you don't learn in a classroom necessarily. And learning to deal with disappointment, learning to deal with success, learning to deal with conflict, and how it can really be ramped up in an athletic context within a group. One of the things I learned a long time ago in a team that I was on that wasn't an athletic team, but I had a member of my team that I just had a really hard time with. We just did not get along. And my supervisor said to me, well, that's your sandpaper person. Any group you're ever in, there'll be at least one sandpaper person that just rubs you rough, just rubs you the wrong way. But that rubbing and that sandpaper, it actually serves a good purpose, right? It helps refine who we actually are. And you will be better for it in the long run. And I think it's a lot of what sport and the participating as a member of a team is one of the things that you learn. And, I always used to say when I was coaching, and I would have a recruit and mom and dad sitting in my office, and, they'd ask me the question, well, what is it that that my son is going to get from being part of your program? I'm not sure they ever asked it quite like that, but I always talked about what my biggest goal was as a coach, and hope is that at the end of their 4 years as being part of the men's soccer team, for me, it was soccer that I coached. I hope that every one of my players that ever plays for me that comes through our program comes out of the program being just a little bit better prepared to be a better employee, a better husband, a better dad than they might otherwise have been. And that's not to say that because you played soccer at Houghton, you're going to be a good husband. But that little bit of the experience that being part of our team helps is just going to supplement how they were raised, what they're learning in all kinds of other areas at Houghton, and that the piece that they learn as being in athletics will just help further them along a little bit more than they might otherwise have been. And my biggest, and you've referenced it, being in someone's wedding, staying connected to your former teammates. The best part of being a coach is getting a phone call from a former athlete that says, hey coach, want to let you know, I just got engaged. I'm getting married. My wife and I are expecting our first kid. Would you come to our wedding? Those things are from a coach's perspective, those are the things you cherish that makes it in terms of being part of a team. So I haven't been invited to every wedding of every one of my former players, but I've been invited to a lot, and it's a lot of fun getting together and seeing those guys get married and make those decisions and those choices and become husbands and dads. And
so. I share when I'm able to give admission talks in person, I share a quote from Bill Gates. Not that he's a shining example of, he's not a Christian college graduate, but he was asked late in life about what did he learn? What's most valuable to him? And he didn't talk about business decisions he made. He didn't talk about, I wish I had launched this product earlier or that product. He talked about relationships. And here's one of the wealthiest people of all time. And he's talking about he wished he would have invested more time in relationships. And so I think that's one of the areas, as you put it, Matt, is sometimes we underappreciate the importance of those as we go through life. And that's what's so special about a place like Houghton, is to build and create those kinds of relationships. Yeah, the laboratory is a great example. Dealing with failure, what a great lesson to learn. And athletes are really good at having opportunities to deal with failure, either personally, I missed that shot, or oh man, that match didn't go well, or oh man, I got outrun or got out whatever, and learning how to get better, or as a team, like, hey, I did my part, but our team still didn't win. What can I do to encourage a team member? What can I do to enhance not just my own performance, but how can I help this whole group move? There's just so many. The irony or the paradox is these are all called soft skills, right? Like people skills are all called soft skills, but I think all of us know working with people is sometimes the hardest thing we do. Working through conflict, motivating a person, accomplishing a task together. So it's kind of an irony that getting a degree, we sometimes think that's the hardest part. Well, sure, yeah, you need to do that, but you're learning so many valuable skills on how to do so many things that are going to be beneficial throughout life. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. Anyone who has the chance to, I tell, as you put it, it's a learning laboratory. If you're not going to be a student athlete, I would just say find some other group, whether it's a club, an organization, where you can give yourself similar experiences. Athletics just happens to be a really, really well organized way to do that.
Yeah. Ryan, thanks for being with us tonight. It's been a pleasure having you. I know you're super, super busy, so fitting this in is appreciated. But from a former athlete and alum and head of our admission area, thanks so much for all you do. And I've sure enjoyed and enjoy working with you. So thanks for being with us tonight. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Matt. And thanks, Jason, for setting this up.
You bet.